Puts it in toward goal. It's coming around, but it is a goal, I think.
Brisbane have won the premiership.
Number 5, Brad Scott.
Emotional stuff for Brad Scott. 168 games, 2 premierships.
Brad Scott is the surprise selection as senior coach of the Kangaroos.
North Melbourne are through. The Bombers are out. The siren's going to sound, and North Melbourne are going to be into the preliminary final. What a match!
Special Brownlow medal edition of Talking Footy, and the coach of the North Melbourne Football Club, Brad Scott's been good enough to wander out of the room and join us live on the desk. Scotty, thanks for your time and congratulations on a great year with a disappointing finish at the end.
Yeah, it was disappointing to us. I mean, we're a step away from a grand final, but we step back away from the year and we've definitely taken a step forward. And I think a lot of sides, you don't waltz into grand finals. I mean, it's very difficult to get there, and the sides I've been a part of in the past have made preliminary finals and been beaten and then come back better for it. So hopefully that's a sign of things to come for us.
Brad, that step, is it a big step? How big do you think that step is before you go from where you are right now to that next level?
Well, I think it's bigger than it's ever been before. I think next year, I've been on record as saying I think 2015 is going to be the most competitive year in the history of the game. We've got 18 teams and a lot of teams are really stepping forward, and we're going to have to get a lot better to even match what we did this year. So it's a huge step.
Rarely, Brad, do you get to a grand final without having a handful of All-Australian players in your team. So who are the next All-Australians? Because that's really the step forward, I would have thought, for you guys.
Yeah, it is. I think one way of looking at this year is we've made a preliminary final without a single All-Australian.
Yeah.
I thought Brent Harvey was a little bit unlucky, but they're always unlucky players. Ben Cunnington polled really well in the Brownlow tonight. I think that's a bit of a sign as to what's in store for him. Jack Zeeble, Andrew Swallow, Daniel Wells missed really large chunks of the year. So I think if we get some continuity with availability of our playing list, we'll have some All-Australians. And Todd Goldstein had an All-Australian in the second half of the year as well. So there are a lot of players who we think are of that standard, but need to put a consistent 22-round performance together.
You came up against a really powerful team on Friday night up there in the Sydney Swans, and they'll go into this grand final as the favourites. At what stage of that game did you think that you were starting to feel powerless from the coach's box?
Well, I thought we started quite well. I mean, we kicked the first goal of the game, and we had most things going our way, but I mean, their counter-attack is just elite. The combination of Tippett and Franklin up the front end is really difficult to counter, and as soon as Kennedy and those guys started getting control of the ball, it was really hard for us to stop. So I think that's the best I've seen Sydney play all year. That performance was the best we've encountered all year, and they're going to be really hard to stop next year.
Do they have a weakness? What do Hawthorn, what do they do to try and expose this side? They seem like the complete outfit.
Well, I think I'm a big believer in the midfield battle, and I think that's where it's going to be won next weekend. But I don't think they have too many weaknesses. But fortunately, Hawthorn have a really powerful forward half. And Sydney, if they get the game on their terms, their defence is really strong. But I think Hawthorn have got the forward line to trouble Sydney's defenders. But the problem with Sydney is their midfield's so good, you've got to get it there in the first place.
Sometimes think their most valuable player is almost Ted Richards, because he's there. I mean, Grundy does a pretty good job, but he just is such a good big defender, always outsized, but usually does the job.
Yeah, he does, and they organise themselves so well in defence as well. And I think Rampy's a really underrated player. Nick Smith's been recognised as an All-Australian this year, and Malcheski as well. So there's some quality players there in the back half. And if you're nitpicking, you're saying, well, maybe Hawthorn's forwards can trouble them, but they've got quality players back there, and they're really well organised.
You're going to look at the positives that have come out of this season as well. Ben Brown, I mean, he's back part of the season, maybe his last 6 games. I mean, that's got to be a really encouraging sign for next year, because he appears to have quite an upside still as a player too.
He really does. He's got elite agility for someone his size. He's 200 centimetres. He's got very, very good endurance. And his pre-season was really interrupted. So really he missed most of the pre-season, came back, played 2 games, then hurt himself, missed another 8 games. So he's doing what he's done in the second half of the year based on 0 pre-season. So we think with a really good, solid preparation under his belt, he's going to improve significantly.
He always seems to get to the front position, so he must pick up the flight of the ball quickly.
He's a natural footballer. He really is. and he's good at ground level for someone his size. He very rarely loses his feet. And, yeah, we've got really high hopes for him. He hadn't rucked at all prior to coming into the AFL side, and we did a power of work with him with his ruck work, and he really improved there as well. So he shows a great aptitude for the game.
Scotty, we were talking before about coaches getting feedback from players, and I thought one of the most extraordinary things I heard this year, and you may correct me, it may be wrong, is that the North players were asking you to be harder on them. I wouldn't have thought anyone's asked the Scot to be harder at any stage. Is that true? Did they ask you to be more direct and harder?
No, that was mainly Brent Harvey, who is incredibly hard on himself and really demanding of his teammates. And Brent would probably prefer that I was harder on some of the younger guys because he's so driven for success, and he was hungry for it, he was impatient for it, and he's 36 years of age now, so that was mainly coming from him. But I think we're at the stage now as a football club where the education is largely over, and it's now time for the playing group to take more control of that.
Is Brent Harvey any different now than when you arrived at the club in terms of his capabilities?
He is different. I think he's better. He's certainly not slowing down.
Yeah.
I think he's a more rounded player than he was 5 or 6 years ago. He's really he plays team roles for us all the time, and you saw him second or third in the Brownlow tonight.
Yeah.
And, he's a brilliant individual player, but I think the team aspect he plays for us is really underrated.
How would you rate Nick Del Santo's first season at the Kangaroos? Out of 10, say.
8, 9 out of 10. Yeah. Outstanding. We wouldn't have been playing in a preliminary final if it wasn't for Nick Del Santo. We had Wells, Swallow, Zeeble missing for large chunks of the year, and Del Santo came in and really helped us win crucial games. So I was talking to Ross Lyon earlier, and Ross is a huge rap for Del, and I concur. Yeah. Just a terrific person, terrific footballer.
Hey, Brad, congratulations. You had little baby boy Fletcher, I believe, a couple of weeks back.
Yep.
Didn't take the coach's advice on timing.
He ignored it once he became a coach. He ignored my advice.
He does exactly what he likes. Hey, and you're part of this great documentary. I'm really looking forward to having a look at it. Pete Dixon has filmed it. All the coaches have made themselves available. Here's a little quick taste of what's coming up on Grand Final Eve.
All senior coaches are weird. Were they always that way? Or does the job turn them that way?
They know the game better than anyone.
I've got to picture myself winning.
You're not breaking it down enough for me.
Well, it's not right!
But do you know them?
You've got a responsibility to keep going.
There's no switching off. See inside their lives.
It's going to end and it probably won't be fun.
People forget that these are just human beings.
The Chosen Few, Friday night on 7.
Yeah, really looking forward to that, Brad. They opened up your house and had people, had Pete Dixon come inside. That's going to be a great documentary.
Yeah, I think it'll be a great insight into the people side of coaches. I mean, we see the coach in person on game day, but this is more of a personal look about coaches. And, I've prepared my wife for the fact that Lee always said to me, coaches are all waiting to be sacked at some point. So I said, at some point, it's going to happen to me. Lee was the only coach I know who retired of his own volition.
I got sacked once. Your guys got sacked once.
Hey, Brad, great for you to come and join us tonight. Really appreciate it. Let you get back into the night, and thanks again. Good luck for next year.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, North Melbourne coach Brad Scott. Good enough to join us here on Brownlow Medal Night. We're going to take a break because after the break, the 2014 Brownlow medalist joins us live on the set for Talking Footy right here at Crown Casino.